Hi, welcome to the joyful year of 2023, where everything that can go wrong actually ends up going terribly wrong. From the ravages of the money printing machine to the skyrocketing prices of commodities, without forgetting the gripping new geopolitical scenario and the ensuing economic roller coaster that's about to happen, starring our friend, the inflation. So, if ancient Romans had an impressively developed state with its own laws, coinage, and finances that could impose the will of the policymakers across a myriad of provinces, how did inflation work back then? And how did the imperial administration deal with its existence whenever it posed a major threat to public and private coffers? Well, beforehand, it shall be clarified that currency worked pretty different back in the past. While in modern days we use fiat money, which is a medium of exchange based on mutual trust, where the symbolic value of cash does not correspond to the inherent physical value of its support material. Back in times of torches and candles, money systems were completely driven by the market value of whatever precious metals were used for minting. You see, any ruler could have a coin stamped with a face and an inscription, but at the end of the day, its worthiness would always be linked to its overall chemical purity. That would be a huge problem in the long run. Let's see the case of Rome's most famous silver coin, the denarius. Near the end of the 3rd century BC, and following a decades-old tradition, Rome was at war with Carthage, again, this time for a second round. Inspired by the Greek silver coins brought by merchants, and in order to have a more efficient taxation, a tighter control over public funds, as well as an upper hand in trade transactions, the Republic began minting a series of trial silver coins over the years, finally coming to a new fixed standard, one that would rule said civilization finances for the next 5 centuries. Not without several steep ups and downs, since its importance and common use would be strictly tied up to the influx of silver towards the public treasury, a delicate factor that would be constantly interrupted or slowed down by fluctuations in the labor supply, piracy, internal turmoil, civil wars, corruption, or mismanagement. Therefore, a model initially established at 4.5 grams and about 95% of purity would suffer constant debasement since its inception, being already shrunk to 3.9 grams in the times of Julius Caesar. Later, Emperor Nero would set a new pattern, 3.4 grams, a habit which would be repeated by most sovereigns that came after him, reducing over time not only the size of the coin itself, but also its pureness, thus becoming the quick and usual way to find the cash needed to pay the empire's large permanent contingents of troops. Nevertheless, that would come at the expense of purchasing power. For example, by the year 241, silver would only make almost half of the denarii composition, resulting in price escalation by 2 of any raw material, good or service, since the first circulation of the currency, without taking into account other possible price increases caused by any other circumstance, such as shortages, shipment delays, or bad crops. By the end of the same century, the silver mines of northern Spain, where most of the ore used for coinage had been mined for centuries, were no longer profitable. The empire had stopped conquering new lands a long time ago, limiting its direct acquisition of raw materials, but devoted all its might to border defense by increasing the salaries of the ever-demanding soldiers. The unsustainable situation ended up derailing due to many troubles, crises of the 3rd century, like the political instability created by constant backstabbing of throne pretenders, countless internal rebellions bleeding and depleting the public purse, or the unsuccessful attempts to solve the economic downturn through amateur economic intervention. The most notorious of all being the Edict of Maximum Prices in the year 301 by Emperor Diocletian, who, in an attempt to stabilize inflation by setting strict commodity prices under very severe penalties, turned up giving wings to an ever-growing black market. Thanks to this spiral of disasters, the average Roman would end up with coins of purely symbolic value, since the silver content had been reduced to a mere 5%, to the point that numerous rural areas of the empire would resort to barter once again as the main medium of exchange. The economic torment of Roman society would come to a halt during the second decade of the 4th century, with the decisive reforms of Constantine the Great, who would introduce the solidus, a coin of solid gold, as the new main currency in circulation, one that would remain in use even after the fall of the Western Empire, not being depreciated until the 11th century and finally replaced in the year 1092 by the Byzantine Emperor Alexius I.